How do I look? Like a hood ornament.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Underrated Podcast. In this podcast, we discuss the films we feel are underrated, underappreciated, or ones that have just slipped on the radar and passed most people by. Today I'm joined by Ariel Ortiz.
Hi.
And Fred Torres.
Word up.
And I am Derek McDuff. Today we're going to be talking about The Rocketeer, a 1991 film directed by Joe Johnston, based on the comic book character of the same name. The film stars Billy Campbell, Jennifer Connelly, Timothy Dalton, Paul Sorvino, and Terry O'Quinn as Howard Hughes. While the film received...
Oh, I can't remember who played Pee-wee. Too? Alan Arkin?
Oh, did I not say... Oh, Alan Arkin. How could I forget? Alan Arkin, he's incredible in this. Thank you for reminding me. And the film received mostly favorable reviews with a 64% in Rotten Tomatoes, but it was a box office failure, making only about $46 million worldwide on a estimated $35 to $40 million budget. This was one of my favorite movies when I was a kid, but I had not watched it in many years. What did you guys? What was your experience with this movie, you guys?
So yeah, for me, I hadn't seen it at all as a kid. My parents never really introduced it to me. I think they found it kind of more boring. I don't know, the Disney movies, because we are a big Disney family. So I was, aware of the movie at least, but my mom never really introduced it to me, and so yeah, but I watched it for the first time today, and I really, really actually enjoyed it. It was basically a 1940s style movie with 90s cinematography, basically, clear and stuff like that. But overall, the story was followed like a movie that you would find in the 40s, which coincidentally, they were talking about in this movie, because Jennifer Connelly, who does not age at all, I might add, freaking Bentley should have never cheated on her. But I mean, it was, it basically followed the themes of a 1940s movie, and Jennifer Connelly, being in this Hollywood setting and being an aspiring actress, kind of it was kind of meta in that way too. But yeah, for overall, I very much enjoyed it, and very good performances, and like we were pointing out, a plethora of people that are household names right now.
Yeah, a lot of really good, not just big actors like Jennifer Connelly and Timothy Dalton, but really good character actors. Like we'd mentioned, Alan Arkin, and of course Terry O'Quinn, who would go on to be on Lost, and even Margot Martindale is in a smaller role. So a lot of great performances in this.
Yeah, no, I'm not gonna lie. I don't know if this part got recorded when I was talking earlier, but so when I was young, I did see this movie, but at the time I was just a Spanish speaking only kid, because that's how I was raised. I mean, I'm born here, so I'm American, but I'm also Mexican. So my parents didn't speak English at the time, and so a lot of my upbringing was just Spanish until maybe age probably 11. So when I saw this movie, I think I was transitioning either into English or I still wasn't speaking it yet, because the movie made no sense. To a Spanish speaker watching it in English, it really doesn't make sense, and they didn't have a translation where they do that. That Channel 34 where the guys are talking, but then the voices come out 5 minutes later. It was like the Shaolin Kung Fu movies.
That scene in was it Home Alone 2 where they're watching It's a Wonderful Life in Spanish.
Yeah, like that. It's like that. And so I was so there was no Spanish translation at the time. So when I watched it, I was like, man, what is this weird movie? It's cool when you're a kid and you see a guy strapped to a rocket and he's flying around. So those were awesome. But then the scenes come out of them falling in love, and I didn't realize they were Nazis at the time. Not that I didn't know what Nazis were, but I just didn't realize that's what they were going with, because obviously you're hearing it, everything sounds jumbled when it's a different language.
To me, to me that sign was just peace, upside down peace sign.
No, I probably didn't even notice it, because I was probably this movie's whack. Get back on the jetpack, boy. And, so watching it now that I'm older and I can actually understand the movie, I'm not gonna lie. I don't know necessarily if this is a kids movie. Like, I don't know if Disney pushed it towards kids or who it was. But as more of an adult person, I think the movie's good. I think it has a good storyline. It's got the love. It's got the action. It's got your protagonist, your antagonist. It's got everything that you need for a good movie. And it's just a good movie. I mean, with a plot twist of the Nazis and whatnot, and the actor, I was like, okay, I go, this isn't such a bad movie. Now, if I was a kid, I don't know if I would understand it the same. Obviously, because I wouldn't know. I'm just basing it off of what I knew. That at least a jetpack interested me, but now that I'm an older person watching it again, it's actually a good movie.
Yeah, I'm glad you guys liked it, because this was my pick. It's a movie that it was one of my favorite movies as a kid, and I would just watch it over and over again. And I think you bring up a good point, Fred, where you're like, oh, is this like a kid's movie? Is it an adult's movie? And I think that might have been why it wasn't super successful at the box office, because Disney didn't really know how to market it. Like, do they put it more towards adults or kids? And they've always kind of had, it was marketed in the U.S. as like a Disney movie, but overseas it was like Touchstone, which is kind of like, what they market as like their older, for older audiences.
Yeah.
When they don't want to put the Disney tag. But yeah, I this movie is such kind of like Ariel was saying, like an old Hollywood, like it's old Hollywood. It really recaptures that feel of the kind of like 1930s serials, because it's set in 1938. It's the only movie that I think does the same thing as the Indiana Jones movies, which are kind of like these throwback action serials, whereas this one's kind of a throwback to like all the old superhero serials that you would see before, like the regular movie. You would see like somebody like, but they're always fighting Nazis, and it's got that really cool like 30s aesthetic where he's got that like really cool fucking helmet, because apparently Michael Eisner was trying to just make it like it's regular spaceman suit, but like it looks so fucking good. And it's one of those movies where I was really nervous to go back and rewatch it, because a lot of the movies that I liked when I was a kid, like I've been rewatching a lot of shit on Disney Plus. Like I rewatched the old like 1993 or whenever Three Musketeers, the one with Tim Curry's the bad guy.
Yes.
And I loved that movie when I was a kid, but as an adult, I was like, this does not hold up.
Hey.
Can we harmonize right now?
Is that the one? Is that the one with Chris O'Donnell?
Yes.
Chris O'Donnell and Charlie Sheen.
Listen, that movie hits so hard. It doesn't matter how old you are, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not even gonna go there.
I get it.
Because
nostalgia still hits for me.
Oh no! It's not even nostalgia. It's just the movie's that good.
I could quote that movie. Come, D'Artagnan.
It didn't hold up for me. I loved it when I was a kid, but this one.
And then let me tell you the song with who was it? It was like Rod Stewart. Yes, it's Rod Stewart, Sting, and Bryan Adams or something like that. Yeah, dude, it's the best.
We go okay.
I mean, we're getting off topic, but you know what? Can we put that? Is that underrated? Because let's put that on the list. I want to watch that one again.
Or just to watch it.
Just to watch it.
Just check. Rewatch it on Disney Plus.
Because that's the best.
But
those
really holds up.
We need to close this floodgate right now.
Yeah, because that's a banger right there.
We could spend 3 hours on this.
But yeah, like it has that kind of old serialized vibe to it, that, and it's got like the villain is basically like an Errol Flynn type, and there's a lot of like even the score, which by James Horner is this kind of great, like it's like a throwback to kind of like these old classic scores. And you've got like stuff like the mob, they're the bad guys, but at the end they're like, you know what, like we're gonna fight the Nazis because they're fucking Nazis. And there's a great shot where you see like the FBI dude and the mob dude, and they both got the machine guns shooting the Nazis. They kind of like stop and look at each other for a second and just go back and start shooting. I love all of that stuff. I love all the old Hollywood. Like it feels just like there's nothing cynical in it, where it just feels like, oh, we're just kind of like, we're just kind of like doing this to like do it. It feels like they really did have a love for this kind of old cinema. And interestingly enough, Joe Johnston, I think that's why he was picked to do the first Captain America movie, which I don't think holds up quite as well as this one, because it's kind of that same like throwback to like these old kind of serials. But I think this one does a lot better job with it.
You know what? Honestly, when I saw this, I did feel like I was watching Captain America 1.
Yeah.
And I even thought that I was like, oh, this is old timey. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like I said, it's a good movie. some of the tropes, obviously, maybe it's because you've seen it before, but the whole Nazi thing and things like that, I did see a lot of that coming. I was like, oh, the bad guys are going to become good
when they
guys.
go to the movie theater and they're like, oh, fight against the Nazis.
Yeah. There's some stuff. I mean, it's like I said, that doesn't detract from it being a good movie. It's a good movie. It's a little cheesy in some of the stuff because obviously it's like kind of vintage style in its process. Just like, there's some cheesy stuff in the first Captain America where you've seen it before,
Which I think they're going for, like they're kind of.
No. And I'm not saying that's it. It's just I'm just saying it's more like as the watcher. Not that the movie didn't hit what it was supposed to hit. I think that's why it's a good movie. But I'm just saying as audience members, sometimes some of this stuff, depending on the person, you're gonna feel some of that, a little bit of the nostalgia, maybe a little bit of the cheese, if you would, in some of it.
Yeah, and I think it like might hold up a little bit more than like Captain America: First Avenger because. No, like keeping in mind when this was made, like in the 90s, it kind of has that 90s feel in a way of that kind of like cheesiness. So I didn't really mind it too much. Whereas like maybe Captain America, you kind of like in the time you weren't in that mindset. It's the 2000s and close to tens and like kind of like okay, it felt more dated, I guess. So like while watching it now, like knowing that this is a 90s movie, I was just like impressed by like things that they were doing than the actual like cheesiness of it.
Look, I'll be honest.
ILM did the effects on it, so
the one thing I was gonna say, the only thing that doesn't hold up, it's well done, but it really made me laugh was anytime the special effects started coming into play.
Yeah, because it's an older movie. It's before Jurassic Park.
Yeah. It's the 90s, and I'm not saying
it's so.
No, I'm not saying they're terrible. I'm just saying it's just cheesy on the way they did stuff in the sense of like, so when the fire's gonna engulf the guy.
Yeah.
Like I mean, those scenes.
It looked like Die Hard, like kind of.
Yeah, like you see him like yelling and like, I mean, I'm just saying some of those are a little cheesy in the sense that it made me laugh more than I thought I was gonna. I guess. I mean, I was expecting it to be, obviously it's not, It's what, like 91. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not 2021. We're not. It's the graphics aren't the same, but it's just I don't know. Maybe.
Yep.
It just made me chuckle a little bit. Some of the acting with some of that stuff. It's
Yeah. For the time though, I think it looks pretty good. Like it's a little dated now, but I think it's definitely like it looks a lot better than a lot of movies that came out that same.
Yeah. No. I'm not saying that it's terrible. It's just just gave me a chuckle in the sense of like obviously it's not the same as actors nowadays that have done green screen and all kinds of stuff forever and they know what they're gonna do. It's just a little bit of the acting. Just I don't know. You look at it and then you just get a little laugh. I mean, but it's still good. Guy gets engulfed in flames and it still works. I'm like, all right.
Yeah. So, I want to go into like just the acting overall. Like, I mean, like the characters. I was like very much surprised about like how natural like the characters were and the acting were and they just felt a lot very real and like in the situation where. It's kind of like it is based on a comic book, and it just felt like a really, really great adaptation and like very grounded and like the story was grounded. I was very surprised that like I wasn't expecting all of this to happen like within like 2 days maybe, and it's like all this stuff happened, but then. But yeah, it's just like really, like Jennifer Connelly's character, like she wasn't like a damsel in distress, like and all that. She was very smart and like they didn't like dim her down and like or to kind of make her. It was like going back to like that 40s style, like it was kind of like a Captain Hepburn kind of like feel of a character, like a strong, like a strong woman, but not like overbearing or like trying to push that agenda or whatever. But I mean, like it was just like a natural character, and to this other, to Cliff, And,
I really liked that. I thought they had really good chemistry. It was a really good love story. I think Timothy Dalton was definitely having some fun being the bad guy because he was James Bond at the time. And apparently, like, he didn't love his time as James Bond, but I think he just loved being, like, this mustache-twirling, just, like, evil, like, secret Nazi guy, because he was just having a fucking blast. And then you've got, like, the big, like, monster Nazi guy, and, Terry O'Quinn is great as Howard Hughes.
Oh, okay. Wait. Before we go, can we say about the giant Nazi guy? That was the one. If I could say that was the one thing, that the only one thing that I was like, out of everything, that was the weirdest shit in the world, and I don't understand that.
I think he was supposed to be like a Nazi experiment. I think is what it was.
I think that's what I was thinking. That's what I was thinking, but I was still like, it was the only one thing out of the whole movie that I was like, you know what, this movie would be more realistic, like believing if that thing wasn't there. Like if they had taken that or made him, no, because you could have made him like a big, brawny, strong guy or something, and I go, and it would have worked. You know, someone like just a big dude. You know, I don't know, but just it's just, you know what it was? It was a face. It was a face that I was like, what the hell?
Okay, going on that. Do you know what I recognized when with
The
when we
Goonies?
started talking? No.
Oh no.
No. I think it was like the same thing that they used for Dick Tracy.
It was.
Yeah,
It
that's what I
reminded me
thought,
of
yeah.
Dick Tracy
Yeah,
because it
that's
was
what it
that same kind of 30s style throwback to like there was always like
No,
in
but
the superhero
movement of
movies there was.
it was definitely a
yeah.
mask.
Yeah.
It was definitely
Yeah.
a mask.
Oh, yeah,
The
yeah.
same thing that Dick Tracy was
Yeah.
trying to do, where like you have these kind of like old comic books and movies and
Yeah.
stuff, and they've got these kind of like monstrous bad guys.
I just didn't understand, like, because I mean, everybody else looks so like real and genuine, and that was the only one thing that I was like, all right. I mean, it's in there. It's a part of a movie. Obviously, it's a movie. I can accept it. But I was just like, wow, you know, if you made him look maybe his face just a little bit more realistic,
Well,
could have
I
had
think-
scars, could have had something.
I
And I was like, I would have believed it.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if like because this is the time of Disney where they were, you know, trying to
Weird is weird.
Yeah, well, trying to gain more money. They were, you know, they were like on the slumps and stuff like that, barely getting out of their slump of the '80s after Walt Disney died and stuff like that. But I wouldn't be surprised if if it was like a remastered like Mask from Dick Tracy, which happened, which was released a year before this. So,
I mean, I think they were just going for like I had a similar idea, but I don't
Yeah.
think it was like
But, I mean,
of that. Yeah.
yeah.
Still, he was weird. I'm sure. I was gonna put it out. That was weird.
But I just love it. Kind of, he comes back at the end, and like there was so much stuff where he's running, and then it's like he's got the cord. There was so much. The script was so smart, where there was so much stuff where like little things that you wouldn't think about earlier in the movie would become big things later, like how he's tethered to it, or the gum was a big thing. Like you first see the gum, it's kind of just like this thing he sticks on the back, and then it's like it's leaking, and so he puts it on the pack, and then at the end of the movie he like peels it off the pack and it explodes. The Nazi guy.
Look,
So
As a kid, I would say that I didn't see that coming. As an adult, I was like, oh, peel the motherfucking gum off. That was the one thought I had when I saw him, because I was like, oh, you put that gum and you're gonna give him the pack, peel the gum off and blow him up. And
Chekhov's gum. And then at the end of the movie he's like, here, make sure you like Howard Hughes rolls back and he's like, have some more gum, don't ever fly without it. So there was a lot of stuff like that I just thought was a really kind of like smart script. And it's a shorter movie. I think it's like like an hour 40 or something like that. It's just kind of like a fun, concise adventure.
I was gonna say, I'll be honest, that time frame and the way the movie is, it makes it perfect. I think if you go any longer,
it felt like
it starts to become
a comic book. It was like the first issue of Rocketeer. I'm sorry.
And the same thing with the flying and everything like that. I think they just did just the right amount of it. They didn't overuse it. They didn't underuse it. It was just it feels good. When you see it, it feels fast paced, even though it slows down at times. When he's on his date watching the movie, it kind of takes a moment to breathe a little bit, but still has enough action within it and stuff going on that it keeps it moving kind of fast.
Yeah.
And it's just right. Like I said, sometimes you can overuse things, and you could have dragged the story on along with the mafia and those guys, but if you did that, then it starts to get a little tedious. Because it's just it'll just be him running around pretty much.
Yeah, it was.
So I think it worked out.
Yeah, it was a perfect balance of all these different situations, and like you have Cliff and what's going on with him, and then you have Timothy Dalton, and then the mobsters, and then they throw in a little bit of the Nazi at the end, but it's kind of like they resolve the mobsters to bring in the Nazis, so it's very, very balanced. And that's what I think I liked about it, and why it flowed very well, and not becoming like overcumbersome with all these different like storylines that were intersecting at the end.
Yeah, no, really, like everything kind of came together really well, I think. So you guys, like I already kind of mentioned, I think it was, kind of underrated because, and like people didn't really see it because it was, just like they didn't know how to market it. If it was, there's kind of a problem Disney had for a long time with like kind of these older PG-13 movies where they don't know how to market them. I think also because
And I think
it doesn't have.
And I think that's what's causing, like, I mean, they're afraid to even do that now, with.
I mean, yeah, like
with,
other
the
than
talk
like
of,
Pirates of the Caribbean, they've had some struggles with that.
Yeah, but in recent time, right now, with Disney Plus, they're like worrying about the Lizzie McGuire show being too mature, even though that they should be pertaining to an audience of our age,
Yeah.
like 20s and stuff.
I think the problem with Disney's always had is just that they've attached the Disney name to being like okay
Wholesome.
for kids. Yeah, wholesome, good for kids. So it's always been the issue of like, oh man, can we attach this to this Disney name? Now, if this movie didn't have Disney's name on it, but was one of their other companies that they have for the movies, and maybe they marketed it a little bit to older people, in the sense of like, yes, it's a movie you can bring kids, but it's got this nice story. I think it could have done better.
Yeah.
But because it's tied to Disney, at the time, Disney's going through the stuff, and then it's wholesome kids stuff, you probably do turn some people off.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
And I think also a big problem with it was that, it's kind of like this old throwback to these 1930s serials like the Indiana Jones movies, where the Indiana Jones movies have the advantage, though, of starring Harrison Ford and being directed by Steven Spielberg, where, like, nobody knows who Billy... Like, other than Timothy Dalton, there's nobody in this movie that anybody knows, really. Nobody knows who Joe Johnston is
Yeah, the only
at the
reason I
time,
know, like,
even now.
Yeah, I mean, the only reason I know of Billy Campbell is because of the show in the early 2000s called The 4400, where he was on. I like this.
Is that that religious show?
It was a sci-fi
No, it's like
show.
aliens abduct people or something, right?
Oh, okay, no, because I was gonna say, isn't that like the 700 Club?
No.
No, that's something else.
Yeah, but it was like in the prime of sci-fi TV where this show came on, or I think it was USA. I think it was sci-fi. Okay, but either or. But I mean, like, it was. That's the only reason randomly that I know of Billy Campbell. I mean, he's a really good actor. I mean, he's pretty good. But yeah, I mean, but yeah, I was very surprised with Alan Arkin being in there. I was like, he looks familiar, and then I was like,
it's the hair. It took me a second to realize it because he has hair in this movie.
Exactly.
But yeah, same thing with Terry O'Quinn too. It took me a second, but
but I mean, right away I was like, Howard Hughes, like, when they introduced the character.
Well, because like when I was a kid, I didn't know who the hell Howard Hughes was, but like it was cool like watching it now. Like, oh, cool, that's Howard Hughes. All this plane stuff, that's really awesome. How they worked
and
him
like
in.
how they it just added that kind of like, you could call it an Easter egg of like him about to build the Spruce Goose.
Yeah.
So in my head I'm like,
in
my head I'm like, right before he went crazy. Okay. That's what he's okay.
Because then it says like it flies, and so I don't know. It's good. It's you guys are right. It does hit nostalgia points very well.
And I think it's kind of developed a little bit of a cult following in recent years, because they were supposed to be like this franchise for Disney. There was plans to make sequels and stuff, which never happened once it didn't make money. But actually, recently there's like it's a Disney Junior show. I just found this out like today that they made like it's so popular today. Like cult at least cult wise that they're making a TV show for kids that were born 25 years after it aired. It started in November, so like I mean that's the staying power. While this movie isn't super popular, like there's still people that just like love it, and I would definitely include myself. I'm glad you guys were able to watch it in for the first time in different degrees. Fred for the first time in English, and Ariel just for the first time in general, and you guys were able to enjoy it because I think
no subtitles.
It has a classic feel.
Yeah, I think now it's more it's a property and an idea that's might be more not acceptable but accepted.
I mean, with the comic book, the new comic book age that we're in right now, where the comic book movies, where I could see him being more accepted. I mean, come on, let's be real. Like, if this movie didn't work because of the maybe more adult concepts, there's also an easy way where you can flip it, just like like they're doing the cartoon, where you can probably make it more exciting for kids. Because what's not exciting about being a kid and thinking about strapping a jetpack on yourself and flying through the skies?
Yeah.
I
Well,
mean, who doesn't think that's cool, especially with a helmet going through? It's one of those things. It's almost like being Superman, but not really.
And I think superhero movies at the time were like. Okay.
I'm looking at the IMDb, and it's basically it sounds so for the cartoon. It's basically super cute. Of a girl inherits the persona of the Rocketeer, and with the help of her gadget building friends, they tackle epic adventures. But guess what? Billy Campbell came back as Dave Secord, the original Rocketeer.
Nice.
Oh, that's
Fred,
cool.
you should put it on for your kids and tell us what they think.
They're probably not gonna watch it. Maybe my youngest might,
Yeah.
if I can get her to sit down and watch it. But the older guys they're into like more hardcore shit now.
Yeah. But like what I was gonna say is that no worries. At the time, I think that superhero movies, like now, superhero movies are like fucking everywhere. Like they're huge. Like this does kind of have like, it feels almost like a precursor to Marvel. Whereas like at the time, really the only really big superhero movie was the Tim Burton Batman movies, which were like so the opposite. They're just like dark and brooding. And
Oh, what about the Superman movies?
Well, that was like 10 years before this, and like they were in the 70s or 20 years. They were like in the 70s.
The Christopher Reeve ones were like the shit. Even
those
when I
were
watched them, even when I watched them as a little kid and couldn't understand. I mean, I'll be real. They were so fucking good. They were so fucking good.
But yeah, like by this time, like really the Superman movies hadn't been a good one in 15 years. The Batman, like people thought superheroes needed to be dark and brooding, and I don't think the market was right for it. But I think today there is a lot more appreciation for movies like this.
That's right. And you know where I think it all started changing was when George Clooney wore the Batman suit and had the nipples on it. I think that's where that was. I think that was a turning point. Wait, what? Why wouldn't know?
Joel Schumacher, we owe you one.
I think that's where everybody said, "Hey, you know what? I think we should give these guys a chance."
Alan's not here to defend his boys. That's why.
Why? No, he would agree with me. He would be like, "Dude, the nipples, like him and didn't Robin also have? Yeah, Robin also had nipples.
I think that was a Val Kilmer one. They even had it.
Yeah.
Oh, see?
It started because that's when Schumacher's.
Oh, okay, there you go. See that it's there was a free of the nipple movement on the bat suit, and people loved it, and that's why today we have more superhero movies. Thank you, nipple Batman suits.
Well, guys, any final thoughts before we wrap this one up?
Go give it a shot. It's definitely one to look into, especially if you want to gain a nostalgia feeling for old Hollywood. And
yeah, no, I mean, especially now that most people probably have Disney Plus for like The Mandalorian, or whether you got kids and they're all binging whatever Disney Plus or Disney Junior or whatever other shows they're watching. I mean, it's there. You get a free chance. Pull up some popcorn, sit on the couch. Pull it up and just give yourself a good hour and a half, and it goes by quick.
Yeah, I think we'd all recommend it.
Definitely recommend for us.
Yeah, well, thank you everyone out there for listening. Do us a favor and hit subscribe on your podcasting app of choice to hear new episodes whenever they come out. And give us a rating and review, preferably 5 stars on iTunes would really help our show get noticed. Once again, we are the Undercast Company, made up of Ariel and Sergio, her brother, who's not here today with us. We've got Fred and then Alan, who's also had to sit this one out, Torres, and once again, I'm Derek McDuff. You can check out some other stuff we're doing, including Ariel does some stuff with DC and cons on Nerd Incorporated. I and Ariel also have another podcast, Infinity Stones and Dragon Bones, and Fred and Alan do have some stuff on called District 6. So check all that stuff out if you guys have a chance, or just follow us on Instagram. And thank you guys all again for listening, and we'll see you in another life.
Well, everybody.